Hello, everybody. I'm Katie Broom from Periapsis Press. I believe I have my audio on. Let me know if I don't. I'm going to talk about a couple of topics that have been stirring on social media, especially Twitter. David is going to be joining me here shortly. He's getting set up. But I'm going to go ahead with my like indie news and stuff. I'll just get that started. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the indie governing body to check for quality that was proposed today. I think it was today or late yesterday. Article by Rob Rhymes about like the second phase of the Iron Age. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the AI art controversy. I say we, but David's mostly going to talk about that. He works with AI. So he has more to say based on some of the conversations that were going on. If you want to listen to our original AI conversation, I've linked that in the description as well. Oh, wow. Hi, guys. Now I'm going to butcher names. So give me grace. Eric Amar. Hi. Solid Hallen. Megazuna. Piano Wolf. TJ. And B.A. Turner. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So biggest thing is today, the Indiegogo for the Iron Age magazine launched, and it's fulfilled its first goal already. Really exciting, great stuff. Really looking forward to seeing some of the stuff that's in this. I don't know how many of you tune in at all to Iron Age Media's YouTube, but he did a chill stream, and I asked him some questions about it, and he talked about the like overall tone and like how many things are going to be in it, and it's going to be really great. I'm really excited about it. I've already backed it, and I think you guys should too. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I've been doing unboxing stuff, and I've been having a blast doing other types of streams, so I haven't really been able to share with you guys. But Jonathan Sugar did a cover reveal for his sequel to In Darkness Cast, which if you've paid any attention to my stream, you know I bring that one up a lot. So I'm excited to see this first glimpse into his sequel. And the sequel to Mouse is available now, and I believe it launches officially Friday. So I'm really excited about that as well. I think that's all for my news stuff. Oh, and I always try to do a little mini review of my upcoming review. I am doing a review of Swords and Maidens, edited by NR LaPoint. So that will be coming out later this week. Really nice short story anthology. 11 stories in that. So it's a chunk. And I really appreciate indie short stories. I believe I said this last time I was streaming, actually. It's just so not short stories in the traditional sense of like there's a twist and it's all about getting you either thematically or through the plot. Instead, it's very much like the mini version of what the authors are doing in their novels. So it's a really great way for readers to be exposed to authors that they might appreciate going and grabbing their longer work. You can really see, like the very first one is TJ's, right? Like there's this wonderful scene where the hero is driving what is essentially a garbage truck, a sci-fi fantasy garbage truck, and his rival is driving a motorcycle, and he pulls a switch, right? And it's just like the epitome of TJ's fun, sort of humorous, just a really great snapshot of what he's capable of as an author. So that's why I really try to encourage people to grab short stories and this new Iron Age magazine, because I feel like they are a genuine example of something that a reader can, like, low risk, try a whole bunch of people and see who they would like to try more of. Okay. How are you, babe?
I'm doing well. Just getting set up here.
Sure. Okay. Hi, SC Vincent. Yes, there's a lot of people that I have reviewed before in Swords and Maidens. I think it was one of my unboxing streams. I think I said, like, this is like a 70 to 80%. Like, yeah, this is going to be a good grab for me. Almost a guarantee review, right? Because I know that it will reflect the capabilities that I know these authors are that they possess, right? So it's definitely like an easy win. So thought we would start out talking about this this tweet that sort of launched a conversation about how we represent indies to readers in such a way that they are confident and know that they can grab X, Y, and Z, and it will be of a certain quality level. This is kind of an interesting conversation because of the, like, dramatic way that people have reacted to it, which I feel like is different from when we first started Periapsis Press, because
it could be that we've just found more people that agree with us.
That's true.
So
that's true.
So we're seeing more of that reaction.
Yeah. So I'll read the tweet. Calling all self-published authors, there seems to be a stigma surrounding books coming from self-publishing that somehow denotes they aren't as good as traditionally published books. If there was some kind of governing body to prove a self-published book has been verified and quality approved, offering books a quote-unquote standards approved logo, would you buy into the concept to attract readers? When someone says buy into the concept, right? Like, does that mean actually buy? Or does it mean, like, would you get behind it? Right? Because I think that's absolutely, you should pay for something like that, right? It's essentially a vanity press.
I don't know that he's saying, is this a guy or girl?
Oh, who knows? I think it's a girl.
Let's figure that out. So I don't know if they're saying that this is something that you pay for, right?
Sure.
So let's not put that idea in their mouth. I think the idea is that there's some kind of group that reviews and approves, and you kind of opt in, and they kind of review and put their stamp of approval on things. So yeah, I don't think, my reaction to this wasn't, oh no, that's bad because it's a vanity press. It's, oh no, it's bad because that's not indie, and we don't need a governing body, right?
Sure. I definitely read it as
Oh.
like literally buy.
Oh,
So
no,
like
no, no.
that was
I don't think-
how I responded
don't-
to it in my tweet.
I
but-
don't think she ever said that, right?
No,
Now-
she said buy into the concept, and I read it that way.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Maybe a poor choice of words on her part.
yeah, I think you're right.
One thing I wanted to point out is that there are things like this already. So, if you've heard of Kirkus reviews, have you heard of Kirkus reviews?
I might recognize it if I saw it.
So Kirkus Reviews is an outfit that you submit your book to, and you submit your book to, and you pay them $500 or something, and they review it.
Okay.
And they don't promise to give a good review.
Mm-hmm.
And they also do featured reviews.
Okay.
So if it's something that they really like, they promote it a little bit on their website in a special section. So of all of the books that they review, and they review a ton of them because anybody can just basically fork over the money and they'll review it on a time frame. Only a small percentage make it into that featured review. I think it's called featured reviews. I don't know, but it's actually something that a lot of TradPub authors do.
Sure.
It's a nice way to get a blurb if your book is good.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I think Kirkus reviews are pretty fair, where even if they'll say some negative things, they'll say some positive things too. So, they won't just,
they don't lambast.
They won't just completely piss all over your book. They'll acknowledge positive elements of it too. So that you'll often see a little snippet. So I think that's probably, other than actual publishers, which I think this is the most like, probably Kirkus Reviews is the most similar thing to this that exists now.
Yeah. I think the reactions to her tweet were pretty strong. No, because of the wording governing body. But something like what you're saying would be like something you submit to. You say,
Mm-hmm.
I want you to assess. The problem is, like having the idea of like when you say a body, right? Like this sort of objective, faceless group, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when there becomes like this divide between the reader and who is choosing, who is saying what's of quality, who is saying what kinds of stuff is acceptable. And we're right back with gatekeeping.
Yeah, well, and when you say governing body, I think of government, right? And I guess if I was to sort of espouse my libertarian tendencies, or more, sort of constitutional tendencies, I would say that, the government is there to sort of protect rights, and whatever rights the government has are rights that we give up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we say, okay, I'm choosing to let myself be governed by you. I'm giving you, I'm allowing you to do these things, right? In exchange, maybe for something that I can't get myself. So, I'm allowing there to be these police officers that that, can drive around my town and potentially harass me
Mm-hmm.
because, and I'm submitting to that system because it it may be one of the only current ways that we can also have some other benefits, like people being around to actually stop crimes, right? Or people who are being trained to do that, whatever, right? I'm not a super big fan of police, so my sentiment about police came out there a little bit. But the thing about this idea of a governing body is, why would I sacrifice any of my rights to this governing body? It seems like the only thing they could give me is this stamp of quality, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't, I think maybe something that we'll get into is I don't really think that that's necessary, right?
Yeah.
If you get 10 or 15 decent reviews on your book on Amazon, that's a stamp of quality.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You get some other authors whose work that you like to review your book positively, that's a stamp of quality.
Right.
So I don't need to give up some of my rights to some governing body to get that in exchange.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I like indie publishing better than small publishers or traditional publishing or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that it's kind of a natural first foray into indie publishing step to sort of think about how can I get the benefits of TradPub that existed here in this new sphere. And that is part of where Periapsis Press came from, right? It was as a reader going, how do I know, right? So my solution was to do it myself, right?
Yep.
Like, I do the reading, I do the reviews, and instead of a stamp of quality, right? It's like, well, I liked this, and it's Katie who liked it, right? It's not some objective higher power, not in the sense of like,
yeah. And
but
this is kind of touching on some of these other arguments and discussions that we've had,
Yeah.
So Katie and I, we do believe that there is objective quality in art. I don't want to speak for her necessarily, but for myself, I believe there is objective quality, but I don't think that we always know what it is. So I'm really leery of claiming that I'm somebody who has that knowledge. Like I feel like I can believe that there is an objective scale without taking it upon myself to say, I know what it is. Right. So the next best thing that I can do is talk about what I like and why I like it. And I mean, I think that's important too, because, even if you sort of acknowledge that there's this objective scale, there's a lot of different tastes, right? I have a limited amount of free time, and I'm probably not going to spend my free time reading pulp novels, like pulp detective novels or pulp boxing novels or pulp Westerns, because those just aren't genres that appeal to me, right? So having nice explanations of what elements something has, kind of separate from value judgments, I think is important too. There's a lot of, on Twitter, there's a lot of sort of sassy one-liners for promoting things because that's what works, or just retweets without saying anything. And I think there's a place for saying, here's this book, I liked it, I think it was good, right? I'm not going to maybe make some kind of tall claim about that, but also here's the elements that it had that I liked, and gives, point to some specific things. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. Yep. And I think it's important to note, because of how I interpreted the tweet, right, with actual monetary skin in the game, that this kind of thing has been proposed before, often, like David said, probably before we found a lot more like-minded people. Our initial feedback from this kind of discussion was always, well, that won't work. It won't make money.
Yeah. Well, and that is one reason why what this person is proposing won't work, is that it won't make money. Right. It's different to have one person running a website in their spare time where they review a book every week or two.
Yeah, as a hobby.
Versus a governing body that probably has enough people that can handle some volume of submissions, review them, do this. I mean, Kirkus Reviews, I don't know how many people they employ, but it's got to be tens or hundreds of people who do these reviews, right? But you know, I'm not saying that she was suggesting that it was paid, but I don't think this kind of thing would work unless it was paid, right? That's why small publishers and traditional publishers bother to review stuff and edit it and do whatever they choose to do to promote it, is because they're getting paid.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, there is definitely truth to nobody's going to do it if it doesn't make money unless it's a hobby.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily scale.
Right.
In terms of one group doing it. Like Periapsis Press, the thing doesn't scale as Periapsis Press. It scales as like different people doing it individually.
Yeah, like so Iron Age Media just did that interview with Razorfist, right? Like that's perfect. Somebody who actually read the books, who has had questions prepared about the books, right? Because what is useful to a reader is not to see, oh, the personality, oh, this individual talking about X, Y, and Z political recent topic, right? Like that's, I can tell, oh, this guy's like an interesting talker, right? Maybe I'll go check out his podcast, but that doesn't help me to decide to pick up his book. Questions about the book, getting the author to talk and give little hints, right? Dropping crumbs, like give you just a taste. And then you're like, I'm totally going to go buy that, right? But like, I couldn't say to Iron Age Media, right? Like, hey, come and be like Periapsis Press. You do as your thing, part of my thing. It just doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
And what David and I have always said is like, we would love to see lots of people doing more, like selling more, doing better, but maybe not like one or two people be like super like, am I saying
yeah,
that?
Yeah. So so I guess the way I would put it is, the goal here isn't support a bunch of people so that the one or two people can turn into J.K. Rowling.
Right.
It's get people in front of people so everybody can sell 2,000 copies instead of 200.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of my goal.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, if what I would like is, I would like a system by which a sort of independent creator, you could come in, you could kind of make friends with the group, you know, or a subgroup, right? And you'd kind of have a clear path to putting out a couple books and then you know, sort of organically building a nice audience, a clearer path than what exists now.
You know, I saw something in the chat that I wanted to talk about, and now I've lost it.
There's a ton of people in the chat.
I know.
We're not used to this level interaction, guys. So we apologize while we're dealing with it. It's fun. I told Katie we should try to do this a little earlier.
We usually start at 10:30.
Yeah, we've got it looks like we've got TJ, Fiona Wolf, Patrick, Solid Halon was here for a bit. B.A. Turner, Doug Wise, yeah. And then Michael Scott showed up for a little bit. He said,
nice.
I declared bankruptcy.
I found the tweet that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Of course, it was from Patrick.
Iron Age Media.
Yes.
Hey, how's it going?
What about the value of something like an indie Pulitzer? A group of people, authors who vote to give their stamp of approval for quality of writing. And it just made me think, I know that some people have awards.
Yep.
The issue that I have with an award is I would have to read a lot in a very, very limited amount of time. And in order to do any kind of group project, right, there would have to be standards that everybody agreed on, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is what we're looking for. And maybe someday. What would be interesting would be to have like a core handful of reviewers, and we say some author says to all 5 of these reviewers, hey, here's a review copy. I'm trying to get all 5 of you. And then there's like all 5 of us liked it type of award, right? Like that would be kind of kind of fun. And then we could, then there's cross promotion that could happen, and that would be a lot of fun. Something to think about more, I guess.
I think my big problem with awards is that the things that get awards tend to be things that are already popular. So the award doesn't really bring new readers to a book, in my opinion.
Necessarily, yeah.
And this isn't to say it's a bad thing, but I feel like probably, I'm just guessing here. Okay, so this is just my guess, but I'm guessing that this this whole indie stamp of quality is coming from a place of this person where they're just sort of frustrated with their book's performance.
Sure.
Right. And the thing is like when you would want that boost, if you're trying to sell books, is you'd want the boost very early in the life cycle of launching that book, especially for smaller folks, right? And there just has to be some kind of system, I don't know whether it's organic or whatever, where if you were going to do that kind of thing for the purposes of like putting a stamp of quality early to make a difference that way, right? Like the biggest example of this is the Dragon Awards, and we stalled a little bit. Okay, the Dragon Awards, and people probably know I like to bitch about the Dragon Awards on Twitter and how everybody else talks about them, because what inevitably happens is the Dragon Awards roll around, and then the most popular books of the year win, and I don't want to say nothing is accomplished, but nothing is accomplished in terms of finding new audiences for books, right? Or shining a light on lesser known books. It's okay. It's like when an indie book wins, it's Galaxy's Edge wins again, right? Well, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I really don't like the idea that people are obligated to do something, but I feel like what we're talking about here, what we're interested in, is we're interested in promoting the lesser known, the smaller audience, right? So it's kind of not how we're thinking about things.
Yep. And the thing about we could start all of the awards in the world, but nobody knows about them, right?
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Like I'd never heard of the Dragon Awards before I started reading indie.
And they're not even an indie. They're not really even a,
Right.
you know, they get less based every year.
Yep. I grabbed this from Aristophanes.
Oh, here we go.
Because he mentioned putting together a group of reviewers.
Yeah,
publishers,
of course he thinks that, because he is a person who wants right wing cultural institution to replace, right? He wants the right to take over the institutions.
Right.
Right.
Which is different from our vision of indie still being indie, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't necessarily want there to be a traditional publisher that or a small publisher that grows
Mm-hmm.
dramatically into a traditional publisher that then says, yes,
Yeah.
we'll publish all of your creative genius.
Mm-hmm.
We would rather that there be lots of people doing very different things.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe catering to niche markets, but we would like there to be a way for readers to find those people. And not that doesn't necessarily mean a publisher, right? Yep.
And by all means, if Aristophanes wants to do this, he should. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing this. I just, I don't think that's the solution.
Yeah.
It's not, and that's not something I'm really interested in participating in.
Right. I am a reviewer, so I commented on his tweet saying, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." But like, I'm not wanting to be some gatekeeping body, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want people to read my website as the definitive, only if it appears on Periapsis Press is it good.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are things that I've read that I say this was good, but like it's not
Mm-hmm.
quite what I want to put on my website, right?
Mm-hmm.
Body and Blood was one of those.
Mm-hmm.
By
Michael
Gallagher.
Good friend,
yeah.
Good Twitter friend.
I think he's the one who did my intro, actually.
Base Papist. Yeah,
yes,
you should follow him. He's great.
Yep. So there's books like that I'm like, I would love to promote this, but it's not quite.
And it part of that with that book too is it didn't quite fit the website, right?
Yep.
Because you're focused specifically on sci-fi and fantasy, and that was more of like a horror kind of.
It was
urban fantasy.
It was if you liked Declan Finn's St. Tommy series,
mm-hmm.
Body and Blood, right up your alley.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of thematic elements that gave me pause.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I decided not to review it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I take the thematic side of the book and I examine it in my review, it just didn't quite fit with what I was trying to do. So
one interesting thing, and I'm going to just bring this up now before I forget it, that I think is a little bit, a reason that I would be leery of using one of these institutions is that so I feel like a lot of indie authors like to try to write a lot of different stuff.
Sure.
And there's no real guarantee that if this body likes one of your books, that they're going to like another one.
Mm-hmm.
But having that stamp on there, if it's sort of part of your brand, it might be weird. And if it's part of how you're selling one of your books, then it might be weird if it wasn't on another one.
Sure.
So then you get into a position where you're starting to maybe change what you're writing or tweak things to get the approval of that body, which isn't necessarily bad, but again, it kind of throws a stick in your ability as an indie author to try different things. So that seems like a risk. And I just brought that up because, you know, you have a thing that you have sort of a kind of book that you want to talk about
Right.
on your website. And if you were setting yourself up as, okay, you know, if you're one of these authors in our circles, you know, you're guaranteed a good review of every one of your books on my website. Or even if you were offering, if we were grifters and you were offering some kind of, say, like paid pre-release review service or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Like Kirkus Reviews does, because I think they do a lot of, you know, you'd send them a manuscript and then you'd have material to put in your blurb or in your book jacket or whatever. You know, you get into this awkward situation where it's like, well, you're my friend, but maybe I kind of just don't like this book of yours as well as another one.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I feel obligated to write a review, or maybe if you paid me, I feel like I need to write a good review, even though I don't like it. Or you end up not writing a review when that's part of their release pipeline, or they're expecting to have this stamp.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can't find something that's both meaningful and sort of something that you can promise to people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, seal of quality, I mean, I suppose you could edit things, right? But why would you edit things and put a stamp of approval on? You know, that's I mean, you read the first few pages of a book in the Amazon preview and tell whether it's edited well or not, right? You don't need a standards body to do that.
Actually, bringing up editing is a great example of why a body like this wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It's because as an indie, you have the ability to go back and edit whatever you want.
Yep.
Especially with ebooks.
Mm-hmm.
So what, do you have to resubmit for that stamp of approval every time you make a change, or like how big of a change?
Yeah.
It's it makes it complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you wanted to say about this?
Let's just look, because I know there was this person elaborated in further tweets and said even more dumb stuff. So I was just gonna see if there's anything about it. Oh yeah, this was rich. So somebody said everything is self-published. It's just shared through different means. There's books out there and shelves still waiting to be found as works of genius. Only the public decide. And then this person commented, self-publishing means the writer does all the donkey work themselves instead of a publishing house doing it for them. Publishers handpick quality books guaranteeing quality, whereas currently there's no quality assurance. So the second half of that tweet is, you know, are you sharing it? Yeah. So the second half is still talking about quality, but the first half made me think of the common argument that, you know, well, when you're indie, it's annoying because you have to do all the marketing yourself. But then when you're traditionally published, they just take care of all of that for you, which is just a lie.
Yep.
They, even really, really big publishers, will not market your book for you on the off chance that you are super famous and everything turns out well. I think you can stop sharing.
Yeah.
You're still going to have to go on book tours. You're going to have to do interviews. You're going to have to do book signings in bookstores.
Mm-hmm.
Which you're still going to have to write blog posts and have a stupid Twitter account where you tweet about your cats and stuff. Right.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't think, I think you definitely can get more visibility from TradPub, but to say that they do the donkey work for you, I just don't think it's true.
No. And like Fiona Wolf just brought up Bane in the comments, like they can shoot you in the foot.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna reference the drama without getting into it, right? Essentially, what was communicated to us was that there are some people who feel that non-serious indie authors drag down serious professionals who are trying to make a living writing. And that it might be detrimental to their brand to appear on a website next to hobby writers. But Bane is sending me emails because I was on a list, right? Voluntarily.
Yeah.
Um,
Offering
like review copies, right?
Mhm.
Of people who,
Which isn't anything special, right?
Right.
A lot of people get review
Yes,
copies.
yes.
So that's
I'm
not
not
that's
saying-
not like a bribe or anything,
No.
right?
no, it's the same. It's the same as
Yeah.
as all
Yeah,
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even as an indie author, there's places where you can give out e-arcs and stuff. So that's not even a TradPub
Yeah.
thing.
No,
right?
I mean the same.
Yeah, but it's you end up having you end up linking yourself with potentially other people that are being published by the same person.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And so these authors, but like my point is, like, these authors would not want to appear on my website, but they are not reaching out to me, right? The company is. So the company can do things on your behalf that
Mhm.
that you would feel was not how you wanted to conduct your business.
Mhm.
So there's you're ceding control.
Mhm.
That's my point.
Yeah, so Sam Goyer's got a nice comment. Even TradPub authors market like self-publishers. Many have YouTube channels to market their own stuff, even though their publisher is supposed to market them. Exactly. So when I was first putting out my books, I used to look a lot at the top ranked Amazon books in my category and look at those people, and they have these, they have little websites and little YouTube channels with maybe a couple thousand subscribers, and and I mean, they got to do what they got to do, right? I mean,
Mhm.
they're not rolling in dough because they're TradPub. They have to promote themselves too, but it's, and maybe they get that initial push, right? And they're getting some traffic and building a fan base from people that are buying their books at bookstores, but they're doing a lot of the same kinds of stuff that indie authors are doing, for sure.
Yep.
And it's not like they've got a ton of money to do it any better, right? These are people who are sitting in front of their laptops reading their books,
And there's a time sink in formatting and finding a cover artist, et cetera, but there's no guarantee that your publisher is going to do a better job than you would.
Yep. Especially if you have some money to spend on it yourself.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think you should go into it thinking that you're going to make that money back. But I mean, what I would like to see is I'd like to see more people who just have these hobby projects. They pay to have them edited. They pay to get a nice cover that they really like. Yeah. And they just put it out there, right? And I think that's the cool thing about indie publishing is you can do it. It's not a huge hurdle. Lots
Right.
of people have a boat, right? Lots of people have a boat, or they have some hobby that they spend $1,000 on here and there. You know, you can do it with your writing
Yep.
too, right? And if you don't have that much money to spend, you can still put stuff out, right? It's not like it has to cost that much, but
Right. Well, like we were saying, I think we were talking about this in connection with the AI topic. But like you can just put out a book with a blank cover, right? Like that's not gonna
Mhm,
um that is not something that's necessarily
mhm.
essential.
Just design something on Canva with a free stock photo background, a
Sure.
nice little what's the word? I always forget the word. What's the word? It's like a little tiny vignette
Ah, yes.
with a vignette gradient over it so it's darker in the corners. Two different fonts, one for the title, one for the maybe a free stock art symbol, semi-transparent in the middle, right? And you're good.
Yep.
You're good to go. Look at the books in the category that you're publishing in, what their covers look like,
Yeah.
and try to make something that doesn't look super offensive, and you'll be fine.
And there's resources, right? Like
David Stewart.
that's who I was trying to think of. Yep, but David Stewart
Yep.
has some great videos about it.
And he was making videos about this topic several years ago before AI art was a thing,
Yep.
doing stock photo mashups, talking about typography, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So however you feel about AI art, you can you can take or leave what you want. And I think, I don't think that it's out of reach for people, right? I mean, in my opinion, and I mean, I guess far be it from me to tell anybody what to do. So if you don't want to listen to my advice, don't. But I mean, I was telling you this the other day. So you wrote this novel, right? If you're really fast, even if you're really fast, you probably spent like 100 hours or a couple hundred hours writing the novel. If it's your first novel, you probably spent a lot longer. I mean, just plan on taking a week of a couple hours a day dinging around with cover design, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even if you end up hiring somebody to do it, you'll at least have some understanding of what you're looking at, maybe what's good, what's bad. Something's weird. It says 99 people are watching.
What? Yeah, I have 102, it says.
Yeah.
Wow. Hi, guys.
Did somebody big retweet us or something?
I don't
think
know.
so.
I have no idea.
That's funny. It's got to be like some bots or something.
Did we stumble into bots?
Did we trip the algorithm or something? That's funny. Let's just proceed as if nothing is happening. That's weird.
Patrick.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I was just saying, spend some time and learn how to do a cover. What were you saying? Were you saying something like if it's your book, it's worth spending some time on presentation or something like that?
I mean, that's a great thing to say.
Yeah.
I think originally I was saying like you, as an indie, there's like a wide range of acceptable, right? Like you can just put up a blank cover with just very generic, simple, and you can go all the way doing everything to make your own cover, right down to the art. Obviously, cover is still how a lot of people browse for stuff, but if you are just trying to do what you can when you can, like it's the keep on trucking on, and I think especially with ebooks, the reader maybe looks at the cover like twice, 3 times, and that's it.
Yep.
So it's not as essential as it used to be. It's still it can still be a selling point for sure. It's an easy selling point because it's visual and you can communicate a lot in a small amount of time, but I don't think it needs to be a hang up. Vienna Wolf is talking about one of her favorite series and says the blurb and sample sold me rather than the cover.
Nice. We're back down to 9 people watching. So
all right,
that's better.
Whoa. I wonder what happened there. I mean, I'd be happy if 100 people were watching us, but the second topic that I wanted to talk about was this article by Rob Rhymes. Just really briefly, mostly I do not at all want to tear him down or anything like that, right? I think that what he's doing for indie creators is great. And I think his article touches on in an almost similar way to this tweet about governing bodies, but in a different way, sort of what we're doing, and how the Iron Age can move forward. And I think indies in general, whether you say you're Iron Age or not, he talks about growth and promotion and doing more as a sort of creative adjacent. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about it. And I will actually share screen again. How the entertainment rebellion needs to grow. And he posted this March 22nd. A couple of people shared it out on Twitter. It's a nice little article. But it does seem like he feels that people should be doing more. And I don't want to put words in his mouth necessarily, but he says there are those of us who use our growing platforms to help other creators beyond just ourselves. So that phrase, the thing is, there are also a lot of people who already reap the benefits of those growing outlets. The reason I bring that up is because many of them could do more. There we go. I'm struggling here, guys. I need like a pointer that's not my cursor. And he says that he's not trying to shame anyone about it. But his point is maybe take the bull by the horns, work harder, and help the next creator. And he talks about people not reciprocating promotion. In the case of like Ethan Van Sciver. And he talks about he kind of wanders into talking about Comicsgate a little bit.
I don't really know what he's specifically talking about when he's talking about those people, because I'm not super well versed in the original Comicsgate lore, and I don't really want to talk about it and put my foot in my mouth.
Okay.
So I don't really know what he's talking about when he says like he saw Ethan Van Sciver get burned by certain people. I don't know what specifically he's talking about there.
Mm-hmm. I like this sentence. I want to promote those who make cool shit, right? That we are excited about making cool stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and we are or I don't know if I want to speak for you, but like I am a big fan of like everything that I post on my website, and I think it's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So we very much feel similarly there.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying you should do this, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
more to promote, more to pull each other up, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So this I feel like is a lot of words to say. The next step to growing the Iron Age is to everybody promote each other. Say like you can start a YouTube channel or use Twitter to promote those that you feel deserve it. Okay.
And that's all true.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
That's all something that those are all things that you can do.
Yep. I feel that I feel a little bit differently than he does.
Mm-hmm.
Not completely, right? Because I think that cross promotion and helping one another out is a great way for like people to find new books, for readers to find new authors. So I'm and having 3 instances of something is better than just the one instance, right? Like one person saying, "Here's my book," and is fine, but like having other people saying, "Hey, here's this new book." But I would say attached to that should be, and I recommend it, right? I think that how we promote one another is important, because just everybody retweeting everybody else is not doing anything.
Yep. And I can elaborate on that.
Yep,
so, you know, everybody's free to express their opinion, right? But I kind of don't like it when you see these arguments being made that kind of sound like people should be obligated to do something. And I mean, I think Rob's article's a fine tone. You know, he qualifies things, and he's I think he's specifically calling out, you know, talking about people who sort of had other people help them build their platforms. Now they should pay it forward, right? So that's fine. But you know, we're all building platforms for different reasons, right? So Ethan Van Sciver is building a platform to promote Comicsgate books, right? He's not building a platform to promote novels or there's a ton of indie comics that aren't Comicsgate, right? He's not really building a platform to promote those. He's friendly to them. He's not like he's not antagonistic to other people, I don't think, that I've seen, but he's building a platform to do something, right? I don't think everybody's goal should be building a platform to just promote generic indie stuff. I think what would work best is if you build a platform to promote your stuff and you kind of do it by promoting other stuff that you like that's somewhat adjacent, right? And I do think that there is a little bit of a danger to just doing scattershot stuff. So I want to talk about B.A. Turner's. He says here, not true. The retweets help and are better than nothing. I disagree with this very strongly. And we went back. I think I talked with B.A. Turner a little bit on Twitter about this, but I mean, like if somebody follows me and I look at their Twitter feed and it's just all just retweeting stuff. If I follow that person back, I'm probably going to turn off retweets because I'm not on Twitter to have a feed full of books, just random books being retweeted. And especially not just people retweeting stuff for no reason, right? When you see these people who are retweeting everything, they haven't read all that stuff, right? They just haven't. They're just retweeting stuff because they think it helps or whatever, right? I want to follow interesting accounts that have interesting things to say about specific topics that I'm interested in. And I also want to be one of those accounts, right? And this is advice that I got from people who are more successful at this than me when I started. Kind of try to be something, right? So have your Twitter account have the topic. And I don't have one topic, I have 2 or 3, and I experiment with them, but I don't just scattershot, right? So my Twitter account is about my writing, it's about my game project, and it's about sort of adjacent like AI stuff. And then I also tweet about stuff that my kids do. And pretty much everything else is related to that. Like most of the time when I tweet about my kids, it is sort of like either it's like Star Wars related a lot of the time. I found recently that people really like Star Wars, and I'm kind of done with the whole Brand Zero thing. So I've this year I've been just embracing the fact that I like Star Wars. So I tweet about that a lot. So that's kind of and that's also adjacent to what I'm writing, like what I'm writing. I'm kind of seeing that Star Wars is really, I think, the touch point to my own writing. But I mean, I have other interests, right? I'm really interested in religion. I have strong opinions about religion. But I'm kind of on Twitter to do art and stuff, and I regularly sort of say, okay, I'm not gonna, I want to jump into a discussion. For a while, I had an alt that I would fight with people about religion on, but I kind of quit using it because it was kind of a time sink and didn't go anywhere. I'm not too good at it, but it, I really think about keeping my Twitter focused. Right. And I mean, I could probably do a better job of this than I do. I really think that's how you get success. Is and that's how you find those people that have those things in common with you who would be interested in reading your book. Solid Halon asks, but if I don't retweet your book, how others find out about it? I don't know if that's sarcastic or a real question, but I mean, I think others find out about it when people who have actually read it retweet it with a recommendation.
Right. So what I do, and I retweet people's stuff all the time, but I limit it to retweeting people that I have read, and I almost always say something along the lines of, hey, I've reviewed this author, or if it's a new book, or I see like a promo that they do, and then I retweet it with, hey, here's a link to my review, right? So and because a retweet, visibility does not equal success.
Yeah.
It doesn't equate. We know that the target audience has to see something over and over
Yeah.
before they buy, before they click.
Mm-hmm.
But just that same thing over and over and over again, their brain is then taught to just scroll past it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's the same group of people talking about the same book again.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, I do occasionally just retweet stuff without saying anything about it, right?
Me too. Yeah.
But I would not make a habit of that. And my thought when I do that isn't, oh, every little bit helps. It's more like, oh, I'm not thinking so much like, oh, somebody who's never seen this is gonna see it. It's maybe more like one of my friends who might not see this because Twitter is dumb might see it now, right? I'm not thinking when I retweet something, this is going out to strangers, right? It's like it's going out to friends. And I mean, it does go out to strangers, but it's not like that's not the point of it, right?
Yeah. And I'm always thinking about like my ideal reader, right? If my ideal reader is on Twitter and follows me on Twitter, which if you know anything about people who follow me, I think maybe there's 5 readers.
Oh, there's more than that.
There's overlap between readers and writers, of course. But like I always think, okay, if I retweet this, how is it going to be helpful to that person? Not to the ether. But I try to make it focused. And that's why I usually quote tweet saying, hey, I've reviewed this person, or you guys should check this out, or this,
John Douglas is here. Hey, John.
Hello.
Yeah. And I mean, B.A. Turner points out, like, he says he found everyone here because of retweets, right? So again, like, we're not saying nobody sees retweets. We're saying that, number one, there's no obligation. And number two, it's a lot more complicated than just the more chances for visibility, the better. Because you run the risk of diluting your own brand. You run the risk of, making the algorithm, not, down prioritize you. Everybody should know at this point that external links are, they either are or appear, either they're down prioritized by the algorithm or they just get less engagement. I think it's some of both, right? People constantly say, oh, links are getting suppressed. It's like, well, maybe people just don't want to click on your links, right? And if it's not active suppression, right, you have to think, okay, if I'm just tweeting out links that nobody's clicking on, even if those links aren't being suppressed, I'm still teaching the algorithm that people don't want to interact with the stuff that I post, right?
I think my point is that reviews and personal recommendations with your own experience as a reader are far more useful than a generic retweet. I'm not saying don't retweet other people's stuff. I'm not saying
I would advise against retweeting everything that crosses your timeline.
Yeah, I
very, very strongly.
David's position is you need to curate your own tweets for your ideal reader. So if you are a writer in a very specific subgenre of sci-fi fantasy, or sci-fi fantasy just in general, and that's part of that's one of your 3 or 4 topics that you tweet about, then it would be more acceptable for you to be retweeting sort of adjacent books.
Yeah, and quote tweets are probably better than retweets, right? Especially if you're saying, I read this and it's good.
Yeah.
Right, for sure. But I mean, all of what I said is my opinion, my empirical experience, with the goal of sort of building a brand so that I can share my creative projects and get eyes on it.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to build I don't want to say random. I'm not trying to build a random indie promotion platform, right? I'm trying to build an account that people want to follow, and that when I share my own work, I can get feedback on it. I can find people who are interested in it, right?
Yep. So sort of two very similar perspectives. David's coming from a creator's perspective. I'm coming from a general promotional perspective. He's saying why you as a creator might want to limit the types of stuff that you quote tweet, and I'm saying as a reader of all of those tweets, a lot of it just gets browsed right over, right? And it isn't particularly useful to me. Going back to Rob's article, the other thing that I wanted to mention was that it's okay to just focus on making cool stuff.
Yep.
And that you shouldn't feel like you need to be sinking a lot of your limited time as a creator, especially if you're a hobbyist, into promoting other people. I think that we as promoters need to be a little less antagonistic towards people who don't reciprocate to the level or the degree that we feel that they should. I think.
Yeah, and people aren't obligated to reciprocate. You can pay it forward, right?
Right.
Somebody reviews or shares your stuff. That doesn't mean that you have to do the same thing for them, but maybe you find somebody else that you like. But maybe you don't find that right away. Maybe it takes a while, right? You come into the scene, you're doing something that's kind of unique, and it takes you a while to find similar stuff, right? I mean, I've been in this scene for a long time. Well, not a long time, I guess. I've been in the scene on Twitter since 2019, because that's when I released my first book. And I mean, it's taken till now for me to find some of the people that I feel the most aligned with. It's just recently some guys that I've been connected with for a long time read and reviewed my book for the first time, right? So it can take time.
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
But you were just kind of saying, don't feel obligated.
Yep. What I don't want is all of the creativity in Iron Age to be smothered by administrative tasks. I'm a reviewer. I read and review stuff. You can share my promotional stuff saying somebody liked this, right? And I'm not going to be mad if you don't then share Periapsis Press or support Periapsis Press or do anything to help me, right? Because what I enjoy doing is writing reviews. I don't want someone who is who has a lot of ideas to be dragged into doing all of this arbitrary tasks because they have to be in order to be part of the community. I don't think that's fair.
And that's not what Rob was necessarily saying.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't want to put words in his mouth.
It is something that you have to balance, right? I have a very limited amount of time. I have a 40-hour week job and I have kids, and I have to think, okay, how much time am I going to spend working on my project versus being on Twitter versus reading other indie authors versus reading traditional authors or playing video games or doing all these different tasks that are sort of related to my creative projects.
Mm-hmm.
And I think different people are going to find different balances.
Yeah. I think A Drink with Crazy and Iron Age Media both are sort of in the same boat I am. They're not necessarily doing their own sort of creative projects in the same way. So I don't...
TJ's got a good tweet, doing everything, or not tweet, comment. Doing everything right is like 5 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So I don't, and I, like, this is my hobby, and I still struggle to do a stream once a week.
Mm-hmm.
I still struggle to get what videos I have recorded, edited, and put up. Scheduling things with people, right? So I'm sympathetic, and I think that Rob's on the right track for sure. But I came away from the article with a sense of obligation that he felt that people needed to step up, which I think from his wording isn't unfair of me to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's good reasons why people don't necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's something that I think each person needs to find their own balance of. You hear lots of different advice on this, right? Some people say, hey, you should think about building up a platform before you launch a book. And probably building a platform when you don't have something out is going to take you promoting other people's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I almost myself would lean more towards the side of, work hard and get a bunch of stuff made first.
Yeah.
Or get your own process for making stuff down first, so that when you get into this, you don't get sort of dragged down by those other tasks, but you have like this rhythm of putting work out, because that's something I struggle with.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, even maybe a good argument for the bigger creators being more obligated to promote stuff is, like, when you're bigger, you have that audience
mm-hmm.
that you can rely on. Maybe you don't need to put stuff out at as furious of a pace.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you could spend more time promoting other people. I don't know. Yeah. I don't want to argue that anybody's obligated to do anything. So,
right.
but I could see that argument being made, mm-hmm. right? If you're still trying to find that audience, it's like you want to throw a lot of stuff out there and see what sticks. You don't have that established audience. You might not have as much time.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what it all boils down to is we all should help each other, in whatever way we can.
Yep.
And I'm glad that there are people like John Douglas and
And
Rob and B.A. Turner, people who are making cool stuff, but also trying to figure out how best they can, support and promote other people.
Yeah.
So, and retweeting and quote retweet. I mean, you do you, right? So there are a lot of people, and I'm not saying that if you want to share Solid Halon's comment there, babe.
Where
he says he'll keep retweeting and quote retweeting. Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of there. So I think so. To further qualify my advice, right? There are some good accounts, and I'm not necessarily throwing Solid Halon into this box. I don't think I follow him, so I'm not super familiar with what he does. But there are good accounts who like they do mostly retweets, but it's like there's a theme to it, right? So, and if it's something I'm interested in, those are accounts that I'll follow, right? So yeah, I mean, there's a place for that too. It's not what I want to do with my Twitter account. And I think people should be intentional, but yeah, I mean, there's a place for that too.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
TJ's got some interesting comments.
Okay.
So he's talking about if he saw a big upside, he'd feel obligated to
give back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but not because of some unspoken contract.
Right. Not because we're part of the community and we should all do it.
Yeah.
I think that, like, if you think about visual art, if you follow a visual artist on Twitter and you look through their feed and it's all retweets of other artists, you're going to turn off retweets straight away because you followed them to see their art.
Well, maybe not if it's related art.
Right.
But
true.
if it's just a bunch of random stuff, right?
Yeah.
Then probably not. Right? If they're retweeting once in a blue moon and it's just otherwise just random, different styles or different genres or however you want to describe it.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the last thing about retweets that I wanted to say.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, if you think about every once in a while, don't come across them too much in just general scrolling. But if you search for a specific phrase like sci-fi fantasy, you will come across these accounts that just post Amazon affiliate links to just everything.
Yep.
So, and there's nothing that's similar at
all. Or like the sort of money making accounts where I'll forgive the ones that are more focused around some theme like real estate or investing in stocks or something, but there's some that just it's like just everything that crosses the timeline. Yeah. All right, should we talk about AI art? I think we've been going for a pretty long time, so I might keep this pretty brief.
I think that would be optimal.
Was there something specifically that you wanted to talk about?
Nope. I think this is mostly you wanting to expand on and clarify a few things based on the controversy that occurred.
Oh, yeah, and I don't know if it's really too much of a controversy. I mean, it was just one particular argument. What I'm starting to see mostly people don't have a problem with AI art. So there are a few of us, myself included, who don't like it at all. I think most people seem to not care at this point. I think I'm a little saddened by that, but it is what it is. I think what I would say is if you're interested in this topic, I went back the other night and I listened to the stream that we did about it, and I feel like it was really good. I said my piece then. I feel like I talked about a lot of arguments that are still being made. Mm-hmm. So maybe if you're interested in that, to go back and watch the old one.
Links in the description.
Links in the description. I might just hit a couple of my arguments or my opinions and arguments just quick, just to summarize. So my biggest objection to AI art is that these, and I'm talking about like AI image generation, like where you type in a prompt and it generates something. My biggest objection is that they're trained on images that are scraped from the internet without the permission of their creators. Now, a lot of people don't really see that as a problem because they think that they sort of, their argument is that the model is kind of learning or taking inspiration from the images that it's being trained on. So when it generates something new, it is something unique and new, like a person would draw inspiration from images. The argument that I made is that, first of all, these models are obviously not people. They're computer programs that run. And it's really quite different than the process that a person would be inspired by, because these models are trained on images. There's a mathematical process by which you describe how the model is going to learn from the images, and it specifies very exactly how the model is trained. So it's a very concrete, very deterministic, mechanistic, if you want to use maybe more weasel words or emotional language, you could say it's a very, stripping down the original images, looking at them at a very fine-grained, low level, so I don't find that kind of, it's learning the same way that, so Solid Halon, they're extracting, not being inspired. I think that's a great way to talk about it. And I mean, even just the idea of being inspired. Can a machine be inspired? I don't think so. I mean, and like, what is art? I think people create art. They would, I think nobody we got some spam. Nobody would disagree that these algorithms produce visually compelling images or interesting designs, but I think a lot of us would see that you could have a visually compelling image or an interesting design without that being art. Art is something that comes from a person, right? And no matter what these machines can do,
Good grief.
and they will get better, right? I don't think that they produce kind of weird, uncanny looking images is a good argument, because next year they're going to be even better. I think that they're not producing art. An argument that I see a lot from these people is it's just another tool like Photoshop. I don't think that's true. Photoshop and a lot of the tools in Photoshop can be described with very simple, straightforward mathematical algorithms and operations that don't require this kind of using training data to derive. I wrote my own program that I use for compositing cover images, and it's all very simple math to do a lot of that stuff. It doesn't have to learn or be inspired, right? So I don't find that argument of it's just another tool to be compelling. A new one that I saw the other day was, it's, if people don't have a problem with AI art. And I think that is not a good argument, because in the case of stock photos, those people have given their permission in whatever way for their stock photos to be used. So I think a more analogous thing would be to AI art would be using people's photos without permission for a cover, right? For a stock photo mashup cover. And now, okay, I'm going to say that there are contexts where I think you should be allowed to use people's photos without permission, right? So I think it's probably pretty legitimate to cut photos out of magazines and make a collage that you put up on your wall or display in an art gallery. Probably gets a little bit more dubious when you do something that's less transformative, and then you slap it on your book cover and you're selling it. And I think that's a pretty good analogy. TJ brings up a great point. He says, I'm really surprised we haven't seen a big curated with permission model. I think it's coming, TJ. I think the reason that we haven't seen it is because people don't care, right? To be honest, I think most of the people who are using AI just like it, and they don't care whether people gave their permission or not. And the sad thing is that the big models that are trained on data sets without people's permission are going to work better than the ones that are trained on data. I think I meant to say data. The big models that are trained on data without people's permission are going to always work better than the ones that are created on curated with permission data sets. I could see in the future maybe the curated with permission data sets working well for people trying to train their own models locally, because you don't have the capacity as a person to train a model on every image ever posted to the internet, but the big companies do, and those models are going to work better. So that's kind of a sad fact of life, but it is the way it is. Evergreen makes a good comment. He's seeing a shift from it's fair because it's like your brain to it's fair because the output is transformative. As more ML experts correct the myths around AI. I would agree with that. And I mean, I think the frustrating thing that I'm seeing is it's just a lot of people saying it's fine and I don't care. Right? People have kind of already made up their mind on it. And it's going to be an accepted thing. I mean, the big news, right, is ChatGPT as far as a language model. And I mean, what is that trained on? That's just trained on text that's scraped from the internet. It's not filtered on things that people gave their permission to use, right? There's, it was trained on tons of copyrighted stuff, and everybody's going to start using that. So I think it's really frustrating. We're going to have to deal, those of us who raise objections are just going to have to deal with the fact that there's a lot of people who aren't going to have these objections. If we want to engage with them, I think we can here and there. But okay, so B.A. Turner's got some stuff. He's saying, I really disagree with the idea that you're taking money away from people by using AI art. I think you can make the argument that something isn't the most ethical thing to use without saying by using it you're taking money away, because these same people wouldn't, like, you can't say that somebody would have paid an artist if it wasn't for AI art, right? There's a million images on AI art images on my timeline, and those would not have all been images from traditional artists if it wasn't for AI art. Now, is there an impact? Probably. I don't like it. I don't like the arguments that people are making. I see a lot of, screw artists, I hate artists. Artists are getting a taste of their own medicine. I hate that. I don't think it's fair to take this as an opportunity to dunk on artists or whatever. I think I can argue all of that without saying you're taking money away from artists. I don't. This is kind of like the software piracy argument, right? It's a little bit. I think it's a little bit weaker of an argument because there's that sort of transformational aspect to AI stuff that people are obviously wrestling with here, right? If these models, if you just type them in and they produce copyrighted images, right, we wouldn't be having this conversation because it would be obvious that you were just stealing images.
Yeah.
Right. So they are doing something interesting. Yeah, and TJ makes a good point. You can't replace, it's gotten to the point where they're good enough quality that you can't replace that with stuff that you can pay for.
Yeah.
So it's not true to say no. Yeah, and I agree with that. Part of what my personal project is, right? And I started this project before this AI art took off. I mean, I saw it coming because I work in this field, but I'm building tools to do crazy things that actually AI art still struggles with. And number one, and number two, it would be too expensive to pay other people to do, right? And I'm vetting that out in the fact that I'm selling some of my work to my friend for more than I would more than I would pay for it, right? So and that's in the 3D art and VFX kind of domain, right? So there's avenues that we can go down, I think, to build better capabilities and help each other out, without going into the AI art domain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not interested in going there until we have something like a curated opt-in
Mm-hmm.
type data set. And even then, I don't think I would call it art, and I would be careful how I would use it.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think if there are any other new arguments that I saw that I wanted to respond to. The everyone who's okay with stock art should be okay with this kind of bothered me.
Yeah.
Because
it's not an equivalent.
Yeah.
Especially on the in the sense of permission to use.
Yep. I think people are either ignorant of the fact of how these models are trained, or they're just hell-bent on training as fair use. So if you take one of those positions, then maybe you can make that comparison. But I just don't think that, like, that's not how I see it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I don't want to go around calling people who have different opinions about this than me immoral, right? I mean, TJ is my friend. He has AI art covers.
I still have his originals up on my website. I just like them better.
yeah, and I liked his originals better too. I think we've talked about this, but it's not about me either, right? I mean, it's about people should experiment and find and see what works. So, and it's still a new field where I think the public's opinion about ethics is evolving. I mean, I was seeing more of a pushback, more people that I felt were sort of aligned with me on this earlier. I mean, this is all happening in the space of like 3 months, right?
Yeah.
2 or 3 months, I feel like, when it really started turning into a big, like, something that people debated. I feel like things have shifted where I definitely feel more in the minority, and that, who knows, that could be just because I have some people muted that do agree with me about this. But I mean, I'd like to think that just calling people dumb who disagree with you, which is what I'm seeing from a lot of pro AI art people, is not going to do their side any favors. Yeah. You know, I'm not going to elaborate on that because it's not necessary. But yeah, I don't think there is anything else. I mean, a lot of what's being talked about, we talked about before, and I kind of have the same opinion about. And I'll say, I mean, I don't think it's uncanny and looks weird is a great argument against AI art, because it's only going to get better. It's only going to get better. Yeah,
TJ was saying that one of them can do hands at 90%.
Yeah. Yep. Or you go in and fix the stuff that needs to be fixed, right? I mean, what's easier, to do a whole painting or just fix the hands.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was saying about Chat GPT. The idea of using AI as a starting point is it doesn't clear away the ethical question, but it comes down to what is the artist willing to do, whether that's the author or the actual physical artist, visual artist. I mean, if someone is willing to turn the entire project into an editing project, that's a completely different type of work. But I think one of the things that I mentioned to you when we were talking about this earlier, people who are hobbyists, who are doing
this is a good thing to bring up,
who are doing their art as a hobby for their own edification, and then sharing that out of a desire to have other people see it, not necessarily out of a desire to make money, although no one's going to say no if people want to give them money for the hard work that they did do. These are the kinds of people who are not going to cut corners using AI, whether that is with ChatGPT or any of the myriad of,
or maybe some of them do, but then there'll be others that don't. Yeah. Right. Maybe some of the people who aren't using it now eventually will start, but then there will be other people who will get into this hobby and never start.
Yep.
There's something that aligns pretty well with the people who say it's just another tool. Okay, well, if it's just another tool, then I mean, it's just a tool. I don't have to use it, right? I can draw with a pen on paper. I don't have to use Photoshop. I can draw pictures of people. I don't have to use a camera. Yeah. Right. I can make, I'm building this sort of realistic rendering pipeline, but I'm also making my game look kind of low poly like games from the mid 90s because that's fun, right? Maybe I could get some AI to help me make it look different, but I don't want it to look different. I want it to look like a low poly game from the 90s. Right. So there's all that. And I'm a little bit afraid that people will see this kind of like, you're dumb for saying that you shouldn't use AI kind of attitude, and be like, man, I just kind of don't like the idea of using AI, but I guess I better. Yeah. Right on my cover. And it's like, I don't want anybody thinking that. You should, like, if you don't want to use a tool, don't use it.
Well, and
SC Vincent signing off.
Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Contributing.
Yeah.
The other side of that sort of belligerent attitude is that
the belligerent attitude of the pro AI people. Or
yes.
Okay.
I think so. Okay. Well, I may retroactively extend that, but mostly the pro AI. Yes. Yeah. Now I'm tracking my argument farther, and the pro AI, the belligerent saying, "Well, you're just stupid," or
you're a Luddite.
Yep. You're not I don't get with like the times.
I don't like that.
The problem is that working in the indie sphere, you're selling to people who care about indies. people who
It's already a niche.
right. I think I talked to you about this as well.
Yeah.
People who are on Amazon and are trad pub readers, right? They are not necessarily being sold on the cover. They are going and they're checking who's the publisher, because that's something that you have to do if you are not just buying whatever. If you care about things like trad pub, right? You're checking that. You're not getting tricked by a good cover into buying whatever. And if you like indies, then what you care about is supporting indies. Now, there's people who do just go on and buy whatever looks good to them. I think that those kinds of readers, that group will, by its nature, grow smaller as people are burnt by trad pub, by picking up not just indies in general, but like dishonest indies, right? Like where the blurb or the cover or whatever didn't accurately reflect what the reader got, either quality level or smut or whatever, but I think that it's important to be gracious in our disagreements, because there are people who are your audience that you would be turning away by saying, well, you're stupid if you care about that, right? I don't think that's fair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I mean, who knows how much business it'll cost them, right? I mean, I'm not gonna say that, oh, this is like a terrible business decision or something. Like a lot of these people, their brand is kind of already built on, being belligerent and finding people who enjoy it.
And like you said, people who've built that brand are selling to people who already don't care, right?
Yeah. I just think it's kind of funny because, I feel like one sort of commonality amongst a lot of very different people in this indie sphere is that, we don't want to be told, hey, you have to like something.
Yeah.
Right. We're kind of doing our own thing. And then it's kind of funny to have this attitude of like, oh, if you have some kind of squeamish response or your reaction, I mean, I don't like making people obligated to do things, but I kind of think you're allowed to have a reaction of like, oh, I kind of wish you would have hired a cover artist instead.
Mm-hmm.
And you're allowed, I think you're allowed to have that reaction without that being like some kind of demand or like, I'm allowed to put this ethical obligation on you that you should have paid money to somebody else, right? I think you're allowed to have that reaction. I think it's kind of funny that sort of, oh, I kind of don't like that, is met with, well, you're dumb.
Mm-hmm.
or I'll do whatever I want. It's like, okay, I guess you can get away with that, but so B.A. Turner, I do think it's, I disagree with your sort of feelings that this is sort of taking money away from indie artists, but I do think it was a little bit unfair how they sort of posed what you were saying as like, oh, you have to like get another job to pay for a cover artist. I mean, we have disagreements about this, but I think what you were saying was taken out of context in this too. So yeah, TJ, that's what we are talking about. And it wasn't like a huge deal.
Yeah, it just brought the AI back
into
the discourse.
It brought it back into the discourse, and it was interesting because it was a lot of like rehashes of things that I'd seen talked about before.
Some stuff you'd addressed, and then like a few new points that you wanted to talk about, is basically.
Yeah. And it was a little bit demoralizing because I think the overwhelming attitude was this is fine. And the idea that people are pushing back on this means that they're dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was a little sad to see that. But I also, at this point, I'm beyond kind of expecting anybody to agree with me about anything at this point. So it is what it is. And it wasn't something that I wanted to wade into because I don't really care. I'm not really a reader of his, and I think a lot of people don't really care what's on the cover of a book. They're buying it for what's inside. And so they probably don't care. I do care. I also don't read a lot. so my opinions about what matters as far as like what people like about books are probably not the most generalizable, but
I think, and this is something that we talked about too. I keep referencing this conversation that we had on a walk. So that's
we talked about this a ton, like when it happened, because we were like, we can't get into this on Twitter. The cool thing about the Larry Correa drama is that just about everybody was on our side in that.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people that I normally can't stand were on our side in that. So as soon as I started seeing that, I doubled down because I'm like, this is an opportunity to find our crowd.
Yep.
This particular conversation, a lot of those same kinds of people were pretty much everybody was taking his side, which is fine. It wasn't my fight.
What I was gonna say is that there's a wide range of acceptable.
Okay, sorry, I just want to bring this up. V.A. Turner, you keep bringing up the total amount that he raised in his crowdfund as if that has something to do with what he should be able to spend money on. That is also not true. You have no idea what his margins are. Just because somebody raises $10,000 doesn't mean they have X amount of money to spend on anything. That's not how it works. Like shipping physical books is ridiculously expensive. You can't look at the final number like that and say he can afford this. You don't know the cost. I'm sorry. You just don't.
Range of acceptable covers for indies.
Yeah. This is a good conversation.
I'm going to grab stuff. So here's Hellspawn. It's shiny. I'm sorry. This is probably my least favorite cover. Is The Mummy of Monte Cristo. I think that it is very passable, if that makes sense. But like, this is a perfectly acceptable, right? It's got mummy hands, and like, I don't think that having, if you are able to just put in a couple of words and have magically a certain level of quality, right? That's necessarily something that's a good thing. Here's another good one. Just simple.
TJ points out that the title of The Mummy of Monte Cristo does a lot of work.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. I love Alexander Helene's covers. I talked about this during my unboxing.
Yep.
Right. So
TJ was pointing out in the chat that Lolo's art, which is he's the guy who did the covers, is pretty expensive, right?
Yep.
I agree with you, TJ. He's kind of like maybe top quality in our sphere, and that's not a $50 cover,
right? But if I came across something like this just online, my very first thought is I need to start looking through the blurb for red flags in the comments for or reviews for red flags. I know C.S. Johnson, right? I recommend her because I read her, right? If a cover is too perfect or it fits just right, it is actually, for someone like me, something that says you need to double check. Whereas a cover that's a little pulpier, right? It says, well, this is clearly indie, and it says someone who's taking inspiration from a certain aesthetic, feel, tone. So there's covers say stuff that is more than just does the author care, right? Or did the author have money? So I think that, like, my point is kind of twofold. There's a range of acceptable covers for indies, and I think that AI art is not necessarily going to dramatically change that, and it's also not going to make a guaranteed easier sale. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now I've taken these out, but I had them in alphabetical by author. So now I'm going to have to put them back later.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing too to consider is that, in a year when every indie book on KDP has a super amazing custom cover, it doesn't mean the same thing that it does now. That's not to say that that's not an argument against having an AI cover. Right? Because you're allowed to just want to have a cool custom cover for your book, but it's not like sending a signal. It might not be sending a signal of like, here's this quality thing. It's not necessarily something that's would stand out, right? If everything was this sort of like painterly non-photo bash, like say people totally abandon photo bash and it's all this kind of painterly ethereal AI style, nothing stands out. And maybe it doesn't have to stand out, but I think there's advantage in things standing out. The other thing too is, especially for small indie creators, I don't think a lot of people are actually discovering our books on Amazon. I think they're finding them through Twitter, through their friends, through recommendations, maybe Amazon recommending them. The cover, it's not like the cover is like really selling the book. And I mean, that's something that Rob proved in his conversation, is basically he tossed this out there and his audience just basically said, I don't care.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my knee-jerk reaction is then why didn't you just put out your books with no cover? But I mean, I understand why he's doing it. He's still trying to sell them on Amazon, but that's kind of something that he proved. So yeah. So I mean, that's kind of something to consider, is like, why specifically for books, like what is the what is the piece doing? What is its function? How is that function going to change over time? I don't think we know the answers to that yet, but it's something that's worth thinking about, especially if you have strong feelings one way or the other and somebody's trying to convince you the other way. Like, think about it, and think about what's, what your values are and what you want out of it. So all right, well, I think that's about it.
As always, I encourage you guys to help support indies by trying them, leaving reviews, and let me know if you guys if you want more things like unboxing videos, because I think that I would like to do that again, because I'd like to have more. And or author interviews. I've got a couple in mind. Or I've done a couple of videos where I take something that's more like traditional mainstream media book type thing, and I give indie alternatives. So if you have something specific that you'd like to know what my indie recommendations would be, sort of adjacent to it, let me know in the comments. I really appreciate all of you guys coming and listening to us and contributing in the conversation.
Yeah. Each one of these streams gets better and better, and it's really fun. It's fun to have actual conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got to have more people actually on.
Yeah, that would be fun.
If we can. So hopefully we can try that sometime soon.
Yeah. All right. And I don't see Patrick, but he usually reminds me to plug Parapsis Press at the end. I was kind of forget.
Yeah. Sam Goyer's got some suggestions for content for you.
Ooh.
I think you should do top 10 worst indie author mutuals.
Oh dear. I don't think I could.
TJ's encouraging us to shill. I don't feel like it. I don't want to be a grifter, so we'll save that for another time. That's it. It's fun, but that's not what this is about. It's about having a fun conversation and having like-minded people.
Yeah. But I think he was responding to my thing about saying Parapsis Press.
Oh.
At the end, but
yeah, TJ wants to pay us for more reviews.
Oh, I thought sometime this year, soon, I'm intending to do some sort of like buy me a coffee type thing. And I am not sure how, the reason that I haven't yet is because I'm not sure how to make sure that authors don't tip me for doing their books, It's like, I don't want it to even be possible, right? Like, so I got to come up with something that, because I
mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a good, the other fight was kind of a good wake up call to the bots are back. We've got 161 viewers now. That other fight was kind of a good wake up call to think about how we talk about what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because I think it's something that people have a hard time wrapping their heads around, like, why would you do this just for fun? You're selling a book on Amazon, but you say you're not really about making money. And I can understand how it's confusing for people. Yeah. And we do want to be careful about.
Oh, 235.
Nice. We do want to be careful about how we talk, and we do want to be honest, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely worth thinking about. So.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's something that I can do that's. I think what we've sort of decided is that the direction we want to go is making cool stuff, and then people support the stuff, the cool stuff.
Yeah.
And less of a subscription model or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. I'm happy to hear other people's ideas about it. I feel more conflicted about it after the drama.
For sure. And I mean, it's always good to be challenged and rethink what you're doing and what the reasons for what you're doing is and how you talk about it. So that's not an entirely bad thing. But all right, well, we should actually let everybody go.
Yes. Have a good night.
See you.